Welcome everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. Go ahead and connect to audio if you haven't yet, and we'll get started here in a minute. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started, knowing that there will be some people that trickle in. Just as a heads up, this is being recorded, so just know that. My name is Jen Fleming, and I'm the Career Advisor for Education, Nonprofit, and Government at the DePaul University Career Center. I just want to ask really quickly, if you're able to have your cameras on, it can be really helpful for panelists and speakers to be able to see your face. We, of course, completely respect if that's not doable at this time. I do want to also have my colleague Libby introduce herself as well. We work on bringing events to students within the education, nonprofit, and government community to all of you, among other things at DePaul.
My name is Libby Woodard. I'm the Assistant Director of Employer Engagement and Internships at the DePaul Career Center. So I work more on the employer side of things. And then like Jen said, we work together to put on programming just like this. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone that's here. We're really excited.
Yeah, and so just to give everybody kind of a rundown of how today will go, I will have our panelists introduce themselves. They do have the organization that they are with highlighted next to their name so that you can tell who the panelists are. We will go through guided discussion questions, and so each panelist will have a turn to answer, and we'll also have the chat option if students want to ask questions throughout. And then we'll also do a Q&A at the end. At the very end, Libby will also launch a poll. It's about 3 questions, super quick. So please make sure to take that. That always helps us know how we're doing with our events and what you guys like and don't like. So without further ado, Brian, do you mind kicking us off for introductions?
Yeah, that's not a problem. My name is Brian Southey, and I'm with the Village of Elk Grove Village Public Works Department. For those in the city, we are located directly adjacent to O'Hare Airport on the west side. I'm the Superintendent of Administration for the Public Works Department. Thank you. I'll give it to Tim.
Thank you, Brian. I'm Tim Wyberg. I'm the Village Manager of Brookfield, which, if you know where Brookfield is, where the zoo is, just a little bit southwest of DePaul, just southwest of the city. George?
Okay. Hi, I'm George Isako. I'm the Assistant Village Manager with the Village of Brookfield. I work for Tim, and I'm a proud DePaul alum, very excited to be here. So I want to thank Jen and Libby for letting us be involved, and hopefully this is the beginning of many more opportunities to promote the profession. So thank you very much. Emily.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Egan, and I previously had the opportunity to work in the village of Brookfield with Tim and George. Currently, I am in the city of Elmhurst, and I am the assistant city planner here in Elmhurst, just directly west of Chicago. I actually live in Chicago currently. And just a little bit about my background. I went to undergrad in Michigan at Grand Valley State University, liberal studies major, very interdisciplinary. And then I got my master's at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Great. Thank you so much. We're really excited to have all of you here today. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with our questions, and then students, alum, definitely feel free to add anything to the chat, and Libby and I can facilitate those questions, or feel free to wait to the end for the Q&A session as well. So really quickly, and I love how our panelists just kind of were able to kind of throw it, so to speak, to the next person. If you don't mind just continuing to do that, I think that works great. Really quickly for our first question, can you tell us a little bit about your career journey from where you started to where you are now, and what your role is in your organization and what that looks like?
I could take this one. So I started off at DePaul pursuing foreign affairs. My dream was to be a diplomat, and that's where my interest in government kind of took off. So if there's any political science majors on the call, I took a lot of courses with Dr. Hibbard and things like that, and spent a lot of time focusing on that. And I graduated right at the tail end of the Great Recession, 09, 2010. And so a political science major with only RA experience was having a hard time finding a job. So I bounced around here and there, and I ended up at Northwestern University as a secretary for the Dean of Students Office. I discovered they had a Master's of Public Policy and Administration program. And so I pursued that program, hoping to learn more about policy and maybe federal government work. And I met a couple of village managers that ended up being mentors of mine. Actually have connection with Tim that way as well. He's worked for a couple of those people. So there was the network opportunity, and learned about the career path. And I was, again, not sure how I felt about the profession, but wanted to pursue maybe law or policy. And I ended up with my first internship at the Village of Glenview Public Works. Kind of kicked off my career learning about local government as an enterprise, as a business, a place of essentially a business. You're running an operation, multiple different departments. There's something new to learn every day. And while I was kind of pursuing dual paths, I got my first professional opportunity at Lake County government as a budget analyst. So I was managing about $100 million worth of department budgets over six different operations within the county. And kind of the rest is history. I ended up where I'm at today with the Village of Brookfield as the assistant village manager, whereas Tim described to me when I was hired that I'm kind of like the chief of operations. I help him run all the departments. Every day is a new day. I work with police one day, negotiating bargaining agreements. We work with Public Works, helping them deal with salt operations. I heard you guys talking about that before. To helping develop the budget and manage the budget, and implement technology and try to streamline operations. So that's kind of a quick overview of how I got into the field on the village management side of things. And it's been a great opportunity. And I think that's the key thing, is learning that it's never the same day. Every day is something new and different. And that's what I love about the career path. I'll kick it off to Tim. How about that?
Well, thank you, George. Thank you for that fine introduction.
Sure.
Real quick, I was born and raised in Chicago, Northwest Side. I went to North Park College, now North Park University, just a little bit northwest of DePaul. I graduated in political science. I really learned from my readings and my study. I had a passion for government and kind of the founding fathers of the United States. I had kind of a romantic version of all of that, but I had no idea how to translate that into a career. You grew up in Chicago. I've never heard of a city manager. The suburbs were a complete foreign concept to me. I never thought I'd ever live there or work there. But anyways, so I went to work for an insurance company and happened to run into an old friend after a couple of years. I hated my job in the insurance company. I was a claims payer, hating every minute of it. And I ran into an old buddy of mine who was getting his master's in public administration from Northern Illinois University, NIU, which is a very strong program and reputation for placing city managers. And it was after a Chicago Bulls game, and I was at a bar, and I'm talking to him, and he was explaining to me what this profession is all about. Light bulb literally went off in my head. I'm like, that's exactly what I want to do. I quit my job. I enrolled at NIU. I got a master's in public administration in 2 years. And my career path to Brookfield is a very typical career path for a village manager. And I started as an administrative intern in the village of Skokie, where I worked in the manager's office while I was in graduate school. Went from there out to the city of Crystal Lake, worked there for 3 years. And then I was fortunate enough to come to the city of Highland Park and the North Shore as the deputy city manager. I was there for 7 years. And then I was the village manager in Lincolnwood, just directly north of Chicago, for 15 years. And then I've been here in Brookfield for a little over 2 years. And in my role as village manager, as George kind of hinted, besides telling him what to do and running him into the ground, I'm responsible for all village operations. So police chief, fire chief, public works director, all of those people report to me. I direct their work. I am hired by the mayor and village board. They are an elected body here in all the suburbs that are represented today. We all operate roughly the same way. Mayor and village board are volunteers, and they hire a village manager to run the operations of government. So that's kind of what I do. Emily, on to you.
Great, thank you so much. So I jumped the gun a little bit. I already said I went to Grand Valley State University for my undergrad and UIC, University of Illinois at Chicago, for my master's in urban planning. I had, like I mentioned, I worked as the planner in the village of Brookfield. So Tim and George know pop quizzes of what the comp plan says and all of that good stuff. But so I wanted to mention just, my undergrad degree was in liberal studies. It was very interdisciplinary, and I liked a lot of different topics. And it wasn't until I found planning that I saw a career path that could really combine all of those different subjects into one coherent career. So I think that was really beneficial when I came across planning, and happy to be here in the city of Elmhurst. And Brian?
All right, thank you. I recently moved to Elk Grove Village. Why would I say recently? I came up here about 6-7 years ago now from Central Illinois, where I was born and raised in Bloomington, Illinois. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Central Illinois. But I started local government when I was actually a day out of high school, 18, started for a local Parks and Recreation department. Up here, a lot of the Parks and Recreation departments are actually districts, but in Central Illinois, they're actually associated in our municipal operation. So during my undergrad at Illinois State University, I worked for the Parks and Recreation department all throughout undergrad. And then, like I think Greg had talked about, common theme here, I was a political science major. Junior, senior year was coming up, and I realized that there probably wasn't much I could do with that political science degree. And spoke to the assistant town manager at the time, the town of Normal, Jeff Fruin, who's now city manager of Iowa City, Iowa. And he told me about this great profession, local government, going on and getting my master's in public administration, and looking into continuing my career working for the city of Bloomington or maybe the town of Normal as a permanent career choice. Also at that time, it was 2007, because I want to give you a little context about what we're being told right now. I was told about the great silver tsunami. So in 2007, I was told that everybody was going to retire and that the careers in local government were going to be abundant. And I would go get this master's, and I'd fall out of, I'd trip over myself with all the jobs opportunities coming out of grad school. Graduated 2009 with my master's in public administration from the University of Illinois Springfield. and tried to stick in Central Illinois, but there just wasn't a lot of opportunity. The recession hit, that huge turnover that now is going to take place never happened. I really wanted to stay in Central Illinois, but to make a career out of this, I needed to move up to the Chicago suburbs. So in about 2015, I started applying to the Chicago suburbs. I had a couple of different interviews with a couple of different municipalities, and then I found Elk Grove Village, and we'll talk about it later. Networking, through using my resources and networking, I found that this was a fit for me, and I got a job as a management analyst for the Village Elk Grove Village Public Works Department. Several years ago, I became the superintendent of administration here at the Public Works Department, and Greg really hit on this. It's a different job every day. Now, well, Greg and Tim, you work in the manager's office. I do a lot of just miscellaneous tasks for our Public Works Department. It's a lot of IT stuff. It's a lot of financing, budgeting, implementing various softwares, just things that I would never manage or imagine doing. Communications. You're a jack of all trades, and I enjoy it. It's something different. So that's my background.
Great. So a few of you have touched on just the fact that, and it looks like I just got disconnected from Zoom, but I am connected by audio via my phone. So I'm thinking you guys can hopefully still hear me.
Hey, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. So I'm going to keep going and try to get reconnected here. But a few of you guys have touched on the fact that these roles really, beget doing something different every single day. With that in mind,
You're on mute, Jen. Looks like you just muted real quick.
She's muted and frozen.
And frozen. Let me pull up the questions and I can kind of take over for her. Just give me just a second while she connects.
Let me help you out. I think what Jen was going to transition to is some of the various skills, hard and soft skills that we find useful in our roles and what we need in our career path to I excel. And I'll just start because I saw this question. I really liked it because one thing that we talk, we've heard a couple of us say we're political science majors, and not to disparage the career, because I think 90% of the people I've met are political science majors that ended up in our field, and I loved my path of study. But one thing I have to say, just being pragmatic, there was a little bit of a gap on real work skills that I didn't get taking all those political theory courses or learning about foreign affairs, which I thought was great and I enjoyed. But definitely the things that I feel like I need on a day-to-day basis as far as hard skill goes are things like project management. Things like Brian mentioned, implementing technology is a huge part of my job. I'd never really done that before I started working in the field. You hear about it, research and analysis. It's a really big part. Municipal governments, we have to manage limited budgets. We have limited revenue sources, and so it's really important that we're not like a private business where the bottom line is the most important thing. We have a bottom line, but it's trying to provide services and making sure we can provide those services with the limited resources we have. So doing analysis, looking at costs, doing cost benefit analyses, those types of things are critical. And then, budgeting, being able to work with a finance team and department heads to manage a budget throughout the year and then develop it at the beginning of the year. And then something like public speaking, presenting to a village board, presenting to stakeholders in your community. There's many, many more, but those are some top ones that stick out for me on hard skills. As far as soft skills go, this is one I think these are things that you can learn pretty easily, learn on the job or at school also, but communication, being a good communicator, being a good team player, managing your time, things like that. So I don't want to take all of them because I'm sure we'll have some overlapping ones, but how about I'll start with, I'll go back to Brian since we went in a different order last time.
I echo a lot of what you said. I think some of the biggest hard skills that I think that are going to make you successful in local government at our level is, accounting and budgeting. You might take one or two accounting or budgeting classes, as an undergrad, or even if you pursue your MPA and you're going to touch on it a little bit. But I see the people that get ahead faster are the people that really understand the budget, that really understand the accounts and how it works in as we're talking about your funding sources and where you're getting your money, what you have to work with. I think you can't have too much of that. I would think personally, a great background as an undergrad would even be like an accounting major, and then stepping into the MPA role. I don't see enough people come into our profession with those skills. Additionally, for the soft skills, it is definitely communication, 100%. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to manage your time, as Greg said, and you need to be able just to react. You might come into the office any day of the week and you have an idea of what you think you're going to do, and it's just never that. I can tell you from experience, last week was rough for me because I had a lot to do, and I worked all week on ensuring that everybody in this facility that wanted to be was vaccinated. That on Tuesday morning, I had no idea when I came to work that was going to fall on my lap. And then last week, I worked every day with the fire department and our HR department to vaccinate employees. And that became my number one priority for a week. And everything that I wanted to do got put on the back burner, and I'm catching up this week. But it's having that flexibility and having and also when you're working with, something as dynamic as vaccinating employees and emotional intelligence. And it's something like that's very political. You might not think it, I guess we should know it now. But trying to offer that vaccination became a game of, trying to feel out employees, and we went about it one way and asking employees in masses if they wanted to be vaccinated. And then I had employees coming to me and seeking out me personally in my office one-on-one and say, I didn't tell the group I want to be vaccinated, but just between you and I would like to sign up for it. It's just having those skills. And looking back in hindsight, we should have rolled that out differently. But the job just is constantly evolving. I'll let Emily take it from here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I 100% agree with what you and George mentioned: project management, finance, budgeting. Just to add to what you were saying in regards to communication and public speaking, I think that is extremely critical. Kind of touching on what you mentioned with emotional intelligence. You have to really, know your audience when you're presenting to a group of people that might own businesses in your community. That's going to be a different communication style and different messaging than if you're speaking to other zoning or planning professionals. So just know your audience and be able to communicate and be able to pivot quickly, whether you're in a meeting with residents or you're at a city council meeting, being able to know your audience and being able to pivot. I also think just data analysis, not that you have to be the best statistician there is out there, but you do have to be able to understand the data that you're given and be able to work with that. And it's certainly not something that you have to be a GIS professional, but today, so much of our work and our decision making relies on being able to have and understand good data. So that's one thing that I would add to that, and I'll turn it over to Tim.
Well, yeah, you guys hit on the hard side very well. I agree with all that. I'll focus on the soft side of management and leadership and what's important. And both Brian and Emily touched on emotional intelligence. That's really what it comes down to. And you have to understand in our line of work, especially when you're a village manager, if you don't understand what that means, it's a very public job. That means our decisions are made usually at village board meetings, which are heavily attended by perhaps the public. You have 7 elected officials. You might be on TV. Everything you do and say gets interpreted a million different ways. In addition to that, what I love about being a village manager is the variety of people I work with. So George touched on, we negotiate union contracts. I meet with developers. I meet with bankers. I meet with finance people. I meet with employees. I meet with angry residents. To do that, the soft side is you've got to be able to relate to people, all different kinds of people, in all different types of environments. Some are hostile, some are very polite, some are wonderful, some are difficult. The bottom line is you can't be an a-hole. It's really what it comes down to. You got to check your ego at the door. You can't act like you're not in this for the self congratulations and the pats on the back. You're not going to get that. And if that's what your goal is, this is probably not a line of work for you. But if you enjoy working with people, connecting with people, building communities, and doing all the right things, and understanding that you may, at the end of the day, may not get credit for that, but you know in your heart that you did something and you contributed, that's what really matters. And I've seen a lot of people a lot smarter than I am, who unfortunately just don't, that emotional intelligence piece, whether it's their ego, whether it's their, whatever their issue is, that they kind of crash and burn in the profession. And I find that a little bit heartbreaking, but the bottom line is really just be a good person and deal with people on their own levels. And if you can do that and navigate all that, hopefully you'll be successful.
And I really love that piece about emotional intelligence. I think that's very underestimated in a lot of professions, and super, super important. So I appreciate you guys touching on that as well. And thank you to George, who saved me earlier. I'm not sure what's going on. I do keep seeming to drop from the Zoom call just on my internet, but not on my phone. So Libby will take over if we have any issues. But moving on to our next question, I just want to ask the panelists, what can students do now to prepare themselves for a career in this industry? Thinking about types of experiences, classes, things of that nature.
I feel like I monopolized the conversation, so I'll turn it over to one of my colleagues.
I can start off. I'm thinking about what you can do right now, especially going into the summer. And I don't know where all the students are at that are on this call, but if you're going back to your hometown, I would definitely reach out. If you're interested in local government, reach out to your local village manager, city manager, and see if there is any opportunities this summer. Maybe up here in the Chicago suburbs, there might be, might find a little bit more roadblocks. There might be a lot more people, but like where I'm from, Bloomington Normal, Champaign area, Peoria area, Decatur area. These are all places that are definitely looking for assistance and looking for help. And you're definitely going to have managers there that are interested in providing you with potentially that work or potentially just an introduction for a summer job. And maybe it's not in the manager's office. Maybe it's at a public works department. We hire college students here every year. We hire about 10 to 15. And some of them work for a couple of years and then they find an opportunity in our finance department. We hired someone a couple of years ago and they started working in our finance department after 2 summers, and that was their summer job. We had another student who recently summered here for 2 years and then they became one of our engineering interns. So if you're really interested in it, just pick up the phone and call your hometown if you're going home from the summer and just seeing what opportunities are there. Start with the HR department, but yeah, if you have any way to make a connection to that village manager's office, I would start there. And it's a little late now, but for the first time this year, we actually hired 2 undergrads as interns in our village manager's office. We just filled those, I believe, in the last month, but that's an opportunity that might be available, in Elk Grove Village next summer. Reach out to us, but I would pick up the phone and reach out to your local government. Give it to Tim.
Thank you. Yeah, the nuts and bolts, I think the common trait you've heard from the panelists, we all have college degrees. I think we all have master's degrees. At least if you want to be a village manager, you really aren't going to get the job unless you have that piece of paper, those 2 pieces of paper. So you got to do that. In the meantime, if you're a senior at DePaul or you're about to graduate, and if this is a career you want to get into, I agree with what Brian said. You need to have something on if you want to get an internship. And if you go at NIU, I'm not sure how DePaul's master's, I know you have an MPA program there, Northwestern, it really helps to get a 2-year internship. At NIU, the classes are a 2-year program and you have a 2-year internship. And that is so important to get on your resume, because as you move on and up that ladder, your potential employer is going to be looking for that experience. So you need to do that. If you're not sure yet, you want to get an MPA, or not sure that you want to invest the time and money into that, I agree with what Brian said. We in Brookfield right now, unfortunately, do not have an administrative intern position. George and I have talked about doing it, but hey man, cheap labor, free labor, we're always looking for that. Call me, call George, call any of these people, or as Brian said, if you're from a suburb, call that municipality. They may have opportunities for you to do projects, to do research things. There's always something coming up that we need help on. get in there and do something. Very important.
So Tim, I'll piggyback off that because this is all true. I definitely agree. Internships are critical. It's how I started my career in local government. But I also think it's important to focus on some of these hard skills that I mentioned earlier. And, you know, we say things like, you know, technology implementation, and we say financial analysis, you know, and budget development, and they sound more fancy. Like I remember when I was an undergrad or even as an alum looking for work, you have this kind of sense of what is that? If I haven't done it, it seems like this lofty thing. More often than not, these things are things that you learn on the job. You're in a team somewhere, you're working on one part of it, and you develop these skills over time and watch how the process works. And it's not as fancy or as complicated as it sounds. It's really just problem solving and getting a central problem, you know, accomplished and solved. And so, you know, I think it's definitely important to pursue internship opportunities. But to Brian's point, if you can get a volunteer opportunity as well, or even consider it, you know, in school, or if it's a local church or an organization you're a part of, find volunteer opportunities there. You know, recently I did a technology implementation at my church, for example, and that's something you can add on your resume, and it builds that skills and confidence that you'd need when you're actually applying for a job. Because we're looking for people that can hit the ground running and help us. And of course, especially entry level, we're looking to train too. So we know there's going to be a gap, but we want to see that penchant for wanting to learn and try different things and get engaged. So whether it's a club at school or if it's a volunteer opportunity, find those opportunities to practice, you know, working on a budget. There's plenty of opportunities I could think of in everyday life where we could find an organization or something where we can help with a budget or help implement a project or do an analysis of an operation. So there's opportunities that way too.
I'll jump in there. Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything folks are saying. I think, you know, even if the institution where you're interested to work, it doesn't have an internship available, ask for an informational interview with someone there that has a job that you'd like to have. Just have coffee with them, buy them coffee, and just pick their brain. And maybe there's not an opportunity at that organization currently, but you never know what other resources they may suggest or other connections that they might have for you. So I would say, don't be afraid to ask for an informational interview, be respectful of their time, but definitely speak up about what you want and try to be as clear as possible in what your interests are. I think that always helps folks point you in the right direction. If you know what you're looking for, then other people can make those connections for you within their network more easily. And I also just wanted to suggest some good organizations out there would be the American Planning Association of Illinois. So it's an Illinois specific chapter. If you're interested in planning, students get free membership. And then also Women in Planning and Development. That's a more Chicago-centric organization, but that's a great organization for women in planning and development. And then lastly, you know, just attend a board meeting, attend a city council meeting, attend a planning and zoning commission meeting, see what that is like. Put yourself in the perspective of the staff there and just check it out. I think that's always a good experience for anyone looking to get into this line of work.
I'd be remiss if I didn't. Our colleagues Hannah and Chris are on the call here too. We're with the IAMA, the Illinois Association of Municipal Management Assistants Next Generation Committee. So seeking out opportunities to get people to learn about the profession and ask these kind of questions and engage. So that's why we're here. And so we're excited to hopefully do more work with DePaul, but look at those opportunities. So you can go to ilcma.org. That's the Illinois City Management Association. It's an Illinois chapter, and thanks Chris, he just posted a link to it. So you can, there's same thing with the Planning Association. There's student programs and memberships, and definitely a great way to network and learn about, there's a lot of resources, learn about the profession and get engaged that way too. So Emily, thanks for that reminder.
Great, and I really appreciate,
Greg.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I just said thanks for the plug, Greg.
Yeah, and I just really appreciate all of you sharing things that are maybe aside from internships. I think that's the first thing that students have in mind that that's the only way to get related experience. But as George pointed out, you can get these types of skills doing volunteer work and things like that. And within this particular industry, that's seen as valuable too. And so I talk to students about that a lot. So really keeping that in mind, that it doesn't have to be one set track, thinking about what are all of these different opportunities that you can take a part of, doing informational interviewing like Emily mentioned, and really working on some of those soft and hard skills. So the next question I have for the panelists is what you find most rewarding about your role and what you find most challenging about it.
I can start. Oh, Brian, you want to start?
You take it.
What I find most rewarding, I live now I've raised my family in Glenview, and Glenbrook South High School did a really neat thing that every 2 years they do a job fair for people who would go and talk to the kids seniors about careers. And I did that for years about this profession. And actually my youngest son now is getting his master's in public administration. He worked for the Village of Glenview Public Works Department, kind of like Brian does as a management analyst level. But as I was preparing for that presentation a couple of years ago, I thought about that question. And the answer is very obvious to me. There's very few professions that I know of that give you the variety of things to work on that I do on a daily basis. That's finance, that's development, that's planning, that's union negotiations. I mean, every day is completely different from another day. And what I really love about the job is I can drive around town, any town I've worked in, and I can point to something and say, I had a role in either building that building, or we have a park department here. I helped renovate that park, all right? We're about to put a canoe launch here along Salt Creek. I'm having a role of physically changing the community and making the community different and special and impact people's lives. There's very few professions that I know of that allow you to do that. So I absolutely love that about the job. What don't I love about it? As I said before, it's a very public profession. I was village manager in Lincolnwood for 15 years. I had a great run, but guess what happens in my line of work? A bad election comes. I had a bad mayor came in. Very quickly after he came in office, he wanted his own. Whoops, I'm sorry. I can't mute because if I mute, you won't hear me. Had a very bad mayor come in. I was out of a job within a year of him getting elected. That's the deal. That's what you sign up for. You get it. It's a hazard of the profession. So it's I'd be remiss if I didn't just throw that out there. It doesn't happen very often, but that is the worst part of the job, and it certainly has been for me. But the beautiful thing is I landed on Brookfield, and now I'm torturing everybody down here with the same stuff. So Brian, you wanted to say some things.
Thank you. I'd echo what Tim was saying about we talk about you get to do a variety of things. So it's not the same job every day. It's never going to be. It's you get to, we talked about doing IT, doing financing, doing HR. But then what I really like is you also get to help people. So at the end of the day, you chose public service. So you're helping residents. I communicate with residents all the time. I receive tons of positive feedback, either through either through our service request system or phone calls. You get a lot of attaboys, and it's great to hear back from people that you're having a positive impact on their lives. That's why I joined local government. I like to be a servant. I like to help people. Not only am I helping the public, then in local government, we're always trying to bring people up. I mean, that's our goal, is to coach employees and to take an employee that as an intern. And eventually maybe they're the next village administrator in this location or another municipality. And that's for all employees across the board. That's for our clerical staff. I'm happy I have 2 clerical staff here that started their careers in mid to late careers. They got a late start and they didn't have educations, and we got both of them going back to school. And that's rewarding to get somebody back into school and to watch them start to achieve, to create a better opportunity for their family at home. So we get to serve our employees, and we also get to serve the public. And that's why I joined, and that's what I really like. As for the challenges, the one challenge I will say that I face is that not everybody joins for the same reason, though. So I joined public service because I like to serve the public. I want to be a public servant. And you will have people that join local government as a career. And I need to work on that. And I find that as a challenge. My emotional intelligence needs to be better to recognize it. Maybe some of my engineers they're civil engineers. They don't show up every day to answer the call of public service. And you need to find that middle ground and try to show people why you're here and the good that you can do. But I've encountered that throughout my career, that you'll get people that are here as a career and they're not here for the call for public service. I find that my biggest challenge is I think I can break those people and I can get to them. And every night I go home, and my wife, who also started in local government, she's like, tells me every night, babe, not everybody joined me because they want to save the world, and you need to respect that and let them do their thing, and I got to do my thing, and we'll both accomplish the same mission together. Give it to Emily.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, that's amazing. I definitely have had similar experiences, and you just got to meet people where they are. Not everyone wants to go out and have the same goals that you do, but I would say similar, I think, to what Tim was mentioning. I think the most rewarding part of my work is being able to see a change in the physical environment and know that you helped make that happen, whether it's a curb bump out, whether it's a new development. I think that's really rewarding. And then I think, I had an answer. I think the opposite of that would be the most frustrating thing. But I think, just knowing that you want to see some projects move forward, and sometimes it takes a lot longer than you want it to. Sometimes you have to coordinate with a lot of different stakeholders throughout the state to move projects forward. So that, I think, is part of what is most frustrating. But I also want to add to that, I think it's challenging. I think going back to what Tim said, the fact that it is so public and you're never going to make everyone happy. So whatever decision you make, you have to stand by it, and you have to know that it was the best decision that you can make with the information you had, and know that people are going to disagree with you at times. So that, I think, is my least favorite. I'd prefer that everyone agree with me all the time, but that's what we signed up for.
And just quickly, all that's, I agree with all that, and definitely seeing the change in the community is great. I get charged personally by seeing the change in the organization. So I'm excited to streamline operations, because of course there's changing the community, but the taxpayers pay to allow us to provide services in an efficient way. And so it excites me to be able to find those efficiencies and to make our customer service improved. Most people don't even know about their local government, it seems like, or who's involved, who their trustees are. Do they have a village manager? Who is the village manager? And then, when they're interacting, it's typically to pay a bill, or unfortunately, sometimes to pay a fine or whatever it may be. But I like to make sure that those interactions we're getting feedback on how that goes, and making those interactions better, and just, being efficient that way. Challenge would be, government gets a bad rap for having a lot of red tape and being a little bit old school, let's say, and we deserve that sometimes. I think sometimes we don't, because we do make improvements, but definitely pulling some of the old guard, you have to drag some people along with you, kicking and screaming, and that's okay. I enjoy doing that, so that's definitely part of the job too.
Great. And so I'm probably going to skip around a little bit here in these next two questions. I'll probably ask about 2 to 3 more, and then I definitely want to leave time for our students to ask some questions. So really quickly, can each of you discuss the importance of networking and how it's shaped your professional journey?
I'll start, just because it's a really hilarious connection, and Tim and I talk about this all the time. So as a point, so I work for Tim at the Village of Brookfield. It turns out totally by chance that Emily is on this call too. Emily used to be a village planner here in Brookfield. I was trying to make sure it wasn't a Brookfield-centric panel, but we couldn't help it. Brian, I'm sure you and I have a connection somewhere, but those 2 village managers that I told you that I had started my career with, one of them was Dave Lamarty, who was the village manager that Tim worked for. I'm sure he might get into that later, but Tim worked for him in his career in Highland Park. And then one of the assistants Tim hired was my boss at Lake County. So, and there's many, many more connections like that that really happen organically, and they happen through engagement with people. For instance, Chris, who's on the call, who's part of IAMA Next Gen Committee, I met Chris at an ILCMA event, and we connected that way and have kept tabs on each other and that kind of thing. So it's just really fun to see those relationships grow. And I think there's such a value in getting to know people, learning about their paths and their experience. And you never know where you end up and where you find yourself, who you're working with, who you're working for. And I used to think early in my career that networking was kind of disingenuous. Like you go to a networking event and I have to meet this person because I want something from them and vice versa. And as you get older and realize and develop in the career, you realize that it's a organic, nice thing to do because those connections last, and it's a people business. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, really, really funny how those connections work out. Tim, since I'll pass it over to you.
Well, yeah, no, it was funny. I'm obviously the oldest person on this panel, so I've been doing this for over 30 years. When I first started, when I was probably your guys' age in college, when I started in the profession, I thought I was too cool to IAMA stuff. I'm not going to be part of IAMA. Those guys are dorks and geeks. And then I started realizing who the hell am I? Like I'm the biggest dork and geek in this group. So I started to network more. I went to we have, in our profession, at least in the city management side, you have IAMA, you have ILCMA, you've got conferences, you've got seminars. I started to get to know 25 years ago a lot of people I'm still friends with, very good friends with today. And as George, it's a very incestuous world. I know, I go to a conference, I probably know 90% of the people there. I know, I've either hired them, interviewed them, I just know them. It makes the job fun. It's how I learn. When the chips were down for me a couple of years ago, when I was going through my difficult period in Lincolnwood, I had so many people, good, honest, good friends helping me, and that made all the difference in the world to me. So it's as I think George or Brian, it's a people business. People who are in what we do share the same values that we do: public service, people, helping people, and that's just fun to be around those kind of people. So networking is absolutely critical. I make George go to as many things as he possibly can to get his network building, and it just keeps building. Mine's building to this day. When I came to West Cook County, where Brookfield is, I didn't know any of these towns around here. I didn't know this area at all. I've networked with the village managers of the towns around us, and we go out to lunch once or twice a month. It's absolutely critical and important. Emily.
Thanks. I agree with everything you're saying, especially George, that resonated with me when you said at first you felt like networking could be insincere or fake, but it's really not. It's really just getting to know people, because it's a small world. Like Tim said, you'll run into them again. And I want to add, even in your classes right now, those are the people that you're going to be working with in the future that are going to be around. So get to know them. And yeah, I think it's incredibly important to be able to network in a sincere way.
I'll echo what was said, but I just want to emphasize that I believe it's critically important to network, especially when you're an intern or you're coming out of college to get that first job. And we're talking a lot right now about the Illinois market. If you want to expand to whether it's the West Coast or the East Coast, networking is going to become very important, because when I was growing up in Central Illinois, I networked specifically because I didn't go to NIU, and it was tough to break into this market because you didn't go to NIU. So that's why I networked, and eventually it helped me land this job at Elk Grove Village, where I interviewed here. I had a second interview, and it came to the point where I was going to be offered the job, but I wasn't going to move somewhere and take a job and move my family had I not known anything about the organization. I reached out to a friend, and they knew the assistant manager who had just left here, Joe Carey, who had just taken a job in Vernon Hills. I never met Joe, but I called Joe and I asked him questions for my network about Elk Grove Village and whether it was a job I should take. And he was more than happy to walk me through it, tell me all the pros of the organization, and I accepted the position. So just on that scale, you can also do that, whether it be the East Coast or the West Coast. There are, if you're going to break into North Carolina, the University of North Carolina has a strong program. So you might want to try to get over there. It's going to help you to have that network. I was doing the same thing before I moved up here with the West Coast at the time. ELGL was a new organization and they dominated the Oregon area. And that's somewhere I wanted to potentially move. And I joined that organization. I networked and I had an interview out there within, for me, it was relatively quickly within 3 months. And that's pretty good for not knowing anybody out there, but I developed that network and somebody got me an interview out there. So when you're breaking into the market, it helps to have all those connections. And everybody here, as you can see from all our panelists today, they're all looking out for one another. We want people to achieve. So none of us are going to turn down a phone call to help somebody get into this.
And just, I know we're pressed for time, but it's a very collaborative, collegial field because everything is public anyway. So there's no trade secrets. There's no, of course there are things sometimes you can't share, but for the most part, we're sharing documents, we're sharing templates, we're sharing policies. It's the easiest thing in the world to get an example of something to work on if you're in a bind. So another part of the career that's really great.
Great. And then one last question before you turn it over to our students, and it's kind of a dual question, because I think I get this a lot when I meet with students that are potentially interested in government, not necessarily knowing what are those entry-level roles that I would potentially be applying to. So thinking about students who are maybe going to be, applying to positions post-graduation. What do those look like within your organization? And then maybe just a piece of advice, knowing that, a few of you mentioned, graduating during the recession, and knowing that right now looks a little bit different with COVID. I graduated in 2009 from undergrad, so I know that people's plans change, and people have to be a bit flexible. So just that dual question, and then we will open it up for the chat as well as any verbal questions from the audience.
Here's a little plug for our line of work that we wouldn't say publicly, but we're pretty much recession proof, which is one of the beautiful things about our profession, that throughout the pandemic, there's been no talk of eliminating the village manager, the assistant village manager, planner position. Government, our positions are here, they're needed, they're essential. And so the recession really hasn't had, the recession and the pandemic has not had much of an impact on the type of jobs that we're talking about. That's a good thing. In Brookfield, we have a management analyst position that's in our office. We have an employee here right now, but that is Brookfield's kind of entry level point into our organization. That's somebody who's got a college degree. Our management analyst right now does not have a master's when she retired. She's getting it right now and pursuing it at NIU, but that is our entry level position. So that's kind of the logical kind of entry point into a lot of village governments. Brian?
Yeah, I'll echo what Tim said. The management analyst position is your entry-level position. It varies for each organization, whether or not you're going to find those positions in other departments outside the village manager's office. The Village of Elk Grove Village has a management analyst actually in every department. So we have them in our HR, fire, police, village manager's office, finance department. And then you might have varying levels of management analysts. So our management analysts now technically don't have to have a master's degree. Those are a lot of students that are pursuing their MPA. And then we have a senior management analyst that does require that master's in public administration, located in a bunch of departments also. And that's really your job in training to become a city manager, department head, assistant. I would, again, though, emphasize if you're an undergrad, just reach out to your municipality. We have summer seasonal positions available in our community development department, our finance department, and now our village manager's office. And especially if you're younger and you don't know what you want to do. If you're a freshman or a sophomore in college, but you might be thinking about a career in local government, I would definitely emphasize going and getting a job, working at a public works department, working for a parks and recreation department, knowing what the work actually is, going out there, helping a forestry department cut trees, shoveling asphalt, to give you a true appreciation for the operation. It might seem trivial, but you're going to build those basic skills and understand, what goes into making local government work, and it's only going to help you down the road. Emily?
Thanks. Yeah, I definitely agree with what folks are saying. I would just add, look at building departments and community development departments, even if it's not exactly the perfect position, be willing to review those fence permits for a year and do the tasks that aren't necessarily your dream job, but are going to get you to where you want to be. And then also feel free to start your own projects. If you have the financial means to work for a local organization, feel free to get in there and create your own community development project and show that initiative and start something that you can be proud of, that can show the kind of work that you are capable of doing to whatever organization you're applying to.
Yeah, and just to emphasize, Emily has a planning background. I think the rest of us are on the management, village manager side, but I know Brian is in public works. My career was in public works for a number of years, but I also worked for a county. So you heard management analyst is a common entry level role. I was a budget analyst for the county, and it kind of had a lot of parallels that helped in my career. I had to make the transition back to local government, but don't be bound by necessarily those titles. There is a number of different titles that you can get your foot in the door. But just for concretely at a village level, pretty typically it's management, like an intern, management analyst, assistant to the village manager, assistant village manager, manager on that path. And then there's many, I have a very non-traditional background, so I want to always emphasize that it doesn't always have to go that way, but that is the traditional route that people take.
Awesome. So I do want to open it up for questions either in the chat, or if you want to go ahead and raise your hand at all. I also do just want to point out that in the chat, Hannah Littman and Chris Strom are part of IAMMA, and they included their contact information. So if I were all of you students and alum, I would definitely be feverishly writing that down. Whenever somebody offers to talk with you further or do an informational interview, definitely take them up on it. So definitely check that out. And then we will include the resources that are shared in the chat in the follow-up email with the recording as well. And an article from Emily too. Thanks for that, Emily. And your LinkedIn. Awesome.
Looks like Amy has a question.
Hi, so I'm a recent graduate. It's been a tough job search. I already did the internships with a local government, and I've been putting out my application and talking to people, and it's been extremely difficult. And graduate school doesn't really seem to be in the cards for me right now. And I am interested in planning, but I'm not quite sure what my next step should be.
I can take this one just because you mentioned that you're interested in planning. I, in general, would say, it will happen. I talk to planners in the profession every day that have their stories of how long it took for them to get their first job, how long it took for them to get their first internship, so I just want to encourage you in that respect. I know it's extremely frustrating having been there myself, but I think I would just continue to do what you're doing, and also add that networking component if you're not already looking at organizations that talk about planning, specifically the Women in Planning and Development organization. I know that there is a membership fee for that one, but they do have job postings on there for members that are specifically for members that aren't always posted in other places. So that's a really good resource. And then, like I said, the APA Illinois does have a free student membership. So unfortunately, that's the best advice I have, is keep going and keep talking to people, and don't let it get you too frustrated. And also just keep an open mind. It might not be the perfect job, but it might get you to a place that you want to be, or you might be able to turn it into a perfect job. Honestly, you might be surprised at what that job is. So I wish you the best of luck. I certainly am happy to chat more if you would like.
Can I just add, Emily, really great point on the perfect job, because like I think many people experience this during the Great Recession timeframe and these types of things. I know I did, where I had to leave a full-time position to take a part-time internship without insurance, as an example. And that's not for everyone, but certainly if you can find maybe it's a planning adjacent job, maybe it's a job in the department that might not be planning necessarily, but you'll be around planners, or you'll be learning the processes, different things like that. So really good point from Emily right there. Don't undersell those opportunities if they're out there. Broaden your net, and maybe that'll help get you on your track.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add, Amy, is we've all been there. We all have failures in our background, both in jobs we didn't get, jobs we got, which we wish we didn't get, jobs we lost. I mean, you got to take the long view, and you got to keep plugging at it, have a vision for yourself, have a career plan for yourself, and you don't stop until you get there. So perseverance is important.
I was going to add, I don't know if we have a position currently, but if you check our elkgrove.org/jobs, we do have an engineering intern position, and we do typically, like I said, have that community development position, which is just for summer months. I can reach out after this, and I left my email address here to find out if community development has anybody in mind. That'd be the one position that we have in that planning field. And again, that's a seasonal position. We would love for you to last the whole summer, but that's a position where, you come in, take a job like that. And even if you're here for 4 weeks and then you find something else, at least it's getting your foot in the door.
All really, really good pieces of advice. And we really thank the panelists for being willing to connect further. And obviously Hannah and Chris as well. I just want to take a moment to thank, all of our panelists for their time today. We really, really appreciate it. And I think, for Amy, I think, definitely have a few takeaways and people that you can further connect with. Remember that when you connect with somebody through networking, you don't only connect with them, you also connect with their entire network as well, which is really important. And so we will, did Macy have her hand raised? I just saw that.
I did. It's all right if we're out of time.
Let's take this last question if we can.
Thank you. I also wanted to say thank you to everyone for talking and stuff. But I'm a sophomore, so I'm still kind of going back and forth on everything all the time. So I just kind of wanted to know, how and when did you guys know that this was the right career path for you?
Real quick, I graduated college at North Park. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I was a senior. I wasn't prepared. I was very naive. I went to work, got a job making money because I had to. And then it was a year and a half later, I literally, when I ran into this buddy of mine at a bar, I literally had one of those life epiphanies where I'm like, I had in my head what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to translate it into a career. When George and I were just talking about this the other day, when you reach a cross path, a fork in the road, recognize an opportunity and recognize when that opportunity presents itself, and you just got to go for it. And that's what I did. And I've never regretted it for a second.
My boss might not be happy to hear this, but I didn't know I've been doing this for 8 years, and I don't think I knew I wanted to do this long-term until my last job before I applied for this job. And I mean that sincerely. I was admitted to law school. I was trying to do different things. I was admitted to law school for 3 years and deferred every year because I was scared of student loans, and the career path just kept making more sense than having to go back to school and take all those student loans. So to Amy's point or question earlier, that really resonates with me, because sometimes you just fall into these things and you develop a passion for them. And that's okay too, if you follow what interests you. If you follow what interests you, there's many career paths you can take that will end up being something that you didn't expect it would be. So.
And I'll just add that you can change your mind later. If you follow what interests you now and you're passionate about it, you have so much time ahead to have 3 or 4 careers. There will be many opportunities. Don't be afraid or don't be hesitant to commit to something now just because you think it will be forever. I think that a lot of folks find themselves in a lot of different career journeys. So, don't be too afraid of that. and good luck.
Yes, I also did not know until my junior year. Like Greg, I didn't even finish the LSAT, but I had signed up for the LSAT because I thought that was the thing to do because I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I didn't know about this local government career until I sat down again with Jeff Fruin, who is the local town manager, or assistant village manager, and he explained the career to me. I would say that if it's even remotely a possibility that you're thinking about it, I would definitely reach out to one of us or someone else just to really get a real look at what local government is and what we are doing. Because as a sophomore, you really don't probably have a lot of experience with local government. If you're in the city of Chicago, what local government is at the city of Chicago is vastly different than what local government is here out in the suburbs. But if you're even have the smallest thought about it, definitely reach out to somebody and get a real look at it to see what it is.
I just want to thank our panelists for staying on for a few extra minutes here. We'll have Libby go ahead and launch that 3-question poll. So if you could go ahead and take that as our audience members, we really appreciate it. And again, I just want to thank everybody for giving up their time today and being so willing to connect further. So we will follow up with an email with a recording and the resources and the contact information that some people had shared. So thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoys the sun and hopefully spring is around the corner.
Thank you, Jen and Libby.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Good luck.
Thank you.